There are moments in history when silence weighs heavier than any gunfire. Moments when truth stands alone, surrounded by judgment, waiting for just one voice to recognize it. It happened in the gray dawn of a military base off Coronado, California. A woman in a faded hoodie stood at the gate, her hands raised as two Marines closed in. Her name was Lieutenant Commander Aria Hale, though the guards didn't believe it. Her uniform? Absent. Her ID? Confiscated. Her calm, piercing eyes mistaken for defiance. Someone had reported her, a woman impersonating a Navy SEAL.
The accusations spread like wildfire. A woman claiming SEAL status, walking into one of the most selective installations in the country? Unthinkable. By the time the MPs surrounded her, whispers had already turned to scorn. Stolen valor, one officer muttered. Another fake looking for glory. Arias said nothing. Her silence unnerved them. She had learned long ago that words were wasted on men who spoke louder than they listened.
When the duty captain arrived, he smirked. "You picked the wrong story to fake, ma'am. SEALs don't come in your size." Still, she didn't speak. Her hands remained behind her head, sleeves sliding just enough to reveal the faint tip of ink. The trident's wings, curved and faded, half buried beneath scar tissue.
The captain's laughter stopped for just a breath. Then he snapped his fingers. "Search her. She's lying." But she wasn't. And before the hour was over, the entire base would know it. They brought her to the holding bay. Metal walls, cold light, the echo of boots and orders. The captain leaned against the table. "You're not fooling anyone. SEAL teams don't take women." Aria raised her head for the first time. Her voice was quiet. "They didn't, then."
Before he could sneer again, the door opened. A heavy silence followed as Admiral Marcus Grayson entered, a man whose metals gleamed like glass, whose presence alone could silence a battalion. He studied her for one long, sharp second. Then his gaze dropped to her wrist.
There, beneath the cuff, lay the tattoo. The original SEAL trident, burned into her skin with acid ink. The mark reserved only for those who had earned it the hard way. The Admiral froze. Then he whispered, voice steady as stone. "Release her. That tattoo's authentic." No one in that room dared to breathe.
The air turned heavy, almost sacred. The captain's smirk dissolved into disbelief. "Sir, you can't be serious," he stammered. "She's Lieutenant Commander Aria Hale, Silver Star, SEAL Team 4, 2012. Buried under a collapsed compound in Kandahar, presumed dead. Until now." The captain's face went pale. The guards stepped back, their boots scraping the floor like confessions. Aria stood, straightening her shoulders, eyes fixed on the man who had mocked her minutes ago. She said nothing. The silence did more damage than any shouted word could have. The Admiral stepped closer. "You were off the grid for 8 years. Why come back?" Her reply was calm, almost tender. "Because someone has to remind the next generation what honor sounds like." He nodded once. "And what does it sound like, Commander?" She met his gaze. "It doesn't shout. It doesn't lie. It just endures." The captain bowed his head, shame written in every shallow breath. Outside the holding bay, the story spread before the hour ended. Soldiers who once mocked her now stood in silence as she passed. Some saluted, others lowered their eyes, not out of command, but out of respect. The Admiral spoke one last time before she left the base. "The world forgot your service, Aria, but the men who laughed today will never forget this moment." She smiled faintly. That's enough. The lesson lingered in the air long after she was gone. Respect is not given by rank. It's earned by what survives you.
Years passed, and her name became more than a rumor. It became a whisper of defiance in the halls of training camps and among recruits who doubted themselves. They called her the Ghost of Coronado. Every few months, a new trainee would ask, "Was she real?" And the older instructors would smile and point to the photograph on the wall, a grainy image of a SEAL team standing in sandstorm light, one soldier's face obscured beneath a scarf, her wrist barely visible, the faint shadow of a trident inked there.
The base never forgot the day a woman walked in accused of impersonation and walked out a living legend. Some said the Admiral kept her file locked in his drawer, untouched, as a reminder of the day arrogance met truth and fell silent. Her words became an unofficial creed whispered by those who understood. Honor is quiet, power is loud. Only one survives the silence. And for years after, when new recruits hesitated, unsure of their worth, they would hear that same story of a soldier who was mocked, doubted, arrested, and then recognized for what she had already proven. Because sometimes the strongest uniform is the one you no longer need to wear.